Any place where green things grow, people can have fuel. A dust explosion is the same as a gas explosion. You mix propane or methane or natural gas with air, and if you don't get the hell out of there and there's a spark of some kind, it's just a big cloud of burnable gas that's lighting. And a dust explosion is just exactly the same thing, where you get a big cloud of burnable powder kicked up into the air, and if the particles are fine enough, you get a dust explosion. The MythBusters crew, they used what they did was shoot a 1/4 ton of non-dairy coffee creamer into the sky. You have to imagine starting with a 1/4 ton of propane and using compressed air to vent that into the sky. You'd have you have basically the same amount of heat energy released. Are 12-volt DC gear motors that were originally meant to run an electric wheelchair. This is just a chopper-type variable voltage power supply, 12 volts in, and it chops it to the point where it's variable voltage coming out. Power supplies. This blower, it's a blower that was intended to be used in vacuum cleaners. That gives me the flow rate and the pressure I need. Then all I do is push the powder down the tube, mix it with air, send the air up into the tube, into the burner tube. Here the cloud is moving, and the combustion front is stationary, so it's basically a big blowtorch.
Commercial application would look sort of like this, but only somewhat. In the bag, the powder acts like a solid. When the auger is moving it down the tube, it pretty much flows like it's a liquid. That's what the auger does. The powder just flows down the tube like it's a liquid. Then when I'm mixing it with the air and shooting it into the burner, it's acting like it's a gas.
We had this conversation, you see, and I said, well, let's see if we can get started on this. So I looked up what it would take to get some powder, and I arranged to order it. And I also ordered a spray gun that sprayed powdered paint. And I arranged to have both the spray gun that was the first burner demonstration and the powder, a ton of powder, delivered to Kim's backyard. And he was surprised.
6 months after I had started looking at making a compact wood pellet gasifier to make wood gas to run cars. That's old technology. It goes back to it was used in Europe in World War II when they didn't have gasoline. What he did was just call me up out of the blue and announce that he had ordered a ton of superfine wood powder, and we were going to run a car on it. I have run it through an internal combustion engine. I understand the physics. It's a very low priority compared to other things. The best way to put it, the vertical burner that you saw today is very simple and very easy with a lot of applications, especially if in the next generation that's horizontal. Running an internal combustion engine on powder fuel is doable, but not worth doing.
Henry Ford was one of the first to try to use powdered fuel to drive an automobile. And it got pretty complicated.
Has to start out one place, go through a bunch of turns, and then go into a chamber whose volume is moving rapidly, is changing rapidly and constantly, the piston. And the walls of that chamber are always wetted with oil, and as soon as any particle that touches the oil film on the wall, it sticks there. I mean, whereas with gasoline or diesel fuel, they will, once the oil is hot, the gasoline is soluble. The gasoline and diesel are soluble in engine oil. but it's a liquid dissolving in a liquid, and it boils out once the engine gets warm. I'm confident I can run an engine for 10 minutes on powdered fuel. To go beyond that, you need Toyota or GM's resources. Non-dairy coffee creamer, confectioner's sugar, powdered cornstarch, baking flour, pancake mix, biscuit mix, you name it, it's all fuel. Where we're sitting, we're surrounded by forest that, for what I'm doing, is one vast fuel plantation that nobody ever harvests. We're surrounded by cheap energy that we don't know how to use. You cut down a tree, you do something useful with the tree, you plant a new tree where the tree was, and the forest goes on forever. I look at it, and I look at a forest like a farmer looks at a hayfield.
What I'm working on is to try to make the process of converting back to a completely green system and capturing the carbon. I'm trying to make that economical. If you can make the system work so that it pays for itself in about 20 years or 10 years or 15 years, then it's not a cost. And with present interest rates, we have a reasonable chance.
2,000 pounds of tree collapses down to like 300 pounds, 400 pounds of ethanol. And that's at a huge expense. And that's when you're using a lot of natural gas just to make the process work. Whereas with this, all we do is turn tree into tree powder.
Took the flame and put it in the bag, you burn like a piece of wood.
Yeah, exactly.
But because of what you're doing with the, making it such a fine, when you break it from that solid part, it's amazing. Hot this was going to get. So what I did, you talked about fine grinding something. I took black pepper and sugar, brown sugar, and salt and pepper, and I put it in a coffee grinder so that if it wasn't hot enough, it was to get a sear. Perfectly rare. Just have cold spots. Well, the spot's nowhere near as large as that, how hot that was. And even over here it's hot still, so it worked great. Interesting.
First place that we're going to be beginning as a business is in Canada, where they have a former natural gas powered power plant. Now, it makes beautiful sense. They want to use their biomass to fuel this power plant. Well, they don't want to use natural gas. They know too much about where it came from, and so in order to use their trees, they're going to be building a powder production operation, and they're going to be installing one of Kim's burners and several Kim's burners scaled up in this power plant. And that'll be the first business demonstration of the Summerhill system.